Psalm 61. Some people say to me, they listen to my recording, it sounds so short. How come you talk so long? But I find it interesting if you go in next, because I research and I read about 4 or 5 books and commentaries and so on. I hope it is interesting to you. Okay? Otherwise, if we read, we can leave here by 11:15. But don't worry, if we keep at this, I promise you I will let you out of this class by the time 7-Eleven close. Psalm 61, God's external help. God's external help. And this Psalm 61 is about what prayer can do. And we can learn something from this. What prayer can do. When all things fail, pray. When things are not going right, pray. What can prayer do? And of course, in this circumstance here, David was fleeing from Absalom. He was running away from his son who wanted to overthrow him. So, what can prayer do? In verse 1 and 2, we have the petition. The petition, that means, putting forth your request and so on. Verses 3 to 7, we have an affirmation of trust. And then verse 8, we have vow of grace. And here we will see, still, in spite of the circumstance and so on, the psalmist was crying in confidence. And it's a lesson for us, the cry and the confidence of the godly, even in times of trouble. So to the chief musician on a string instrument, a psalm of David. Verse 1. Hear my cry, O God. Attend to my prayer. From the end of the earth, I will cry to you. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. Now, this is a very passionate cry unto the Lord. Hear my cry. Attend to my prayer. And he said, from the end of the earth, I will cry to you. What does it mean? Was David really in Timbuktu and far away from, And he said, from the end of the earth, I will cry to you. He wasn't in Timbuktu. I don't even know if such a place exists. Does it? Is there such a place? God. Anyway, what he meant was he was far away from the house of God. He was far away from Jerusalem. I mean, first of all, he was the king. And where should the king of Israel be? In the city, in Jerusalem, in his palace, on his throne. He was far away from. But you and I know David. More important than that is that he, being a man whose heart is after God's heart, he was far away from the tabernacle. He was far away from the temple. And the Jews, they desire to come to Jerusalem 3 times a year to celebrate the feast out of the 7. But he could not go. So he said, from the end of the earth, I cry to you. It is different. I can worship you, God, here in Philistia or in the caves or wherever. But it is different. I want to be in your sanctuary. But today we find people conveniently skip church. Today got low A, better skip church. Today got another event, better skip church. Don't want to go on course. Don't want this and that. But listen to the psalmist. From the end of the earth, I cry to you. When my heart is overwhelmed. And this is overwhelmed. That means, sometimes you're overwhelmed with emotion. It really takes over you. Overwhelmed with joy and so on. But in this case, he was overwhelmed with sadness that he cannot be in the house of God. lead me to the rock that is higher than I. We know this song, right? I think in the early days we used to sing this song, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. Now, who is this rock? Okay, but is there a scripture that points to this? Some people say, rock, 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 Jesus rock. But where? 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 4. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 4. So someone said, Jesus is the rock that made me roll. Rock and roll. Whatever. Anyway, so 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 4. And all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank of the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. The rock is Christ. We all drank the same spiritual drink. We were thirsty, and we were quenched by the living water. Right? It is the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. So we know. Back to Psalm 61, it points to Jesus. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. So verses 1 and 2, that was the petition of the psalmist. Then we now come to verses 3 to 7, an affirmation of trust. For you have been a shelter for me, a strong tower from the enemy. You have been a shelter for me. This one we know, right? If you read Psalms 91, you know about shelter, right? Hide under it. But tower. Was there a past reference to this when the people went to the tower to to seek refuge from the enemies, and they were saved? You look at Judges chapter 9, verse 51. Judges chapter 9, verse 51. Judges chapter 9, very long. The rise and fall of Abimelech. Abimelech wasn't afraid of the Israelites. He wanted to persecute them, wanted to destroy them. Okay, let me read from verse 50. Then Abimelech went to Thebez, and he encamped against Thebez and took it. But there was a strong tower in the city. And you know, archaeologists, as they dug up that place, they found ruins of a tower there. So this is to confirm what, because some people say Bible not true, it's only story. It is true. As they dug up, they found there was a tower indeed. But there was a strong tower in the city, and all the men and women, all the people of the city. Well, this must be a big tower, man. Yeah, to house all these people. All of them fled there and shut themselves in. Then they went up to the top of the tower, and they were trying to run away from Abimelech. So Abimelech came as far as the tower and fought against it. And he drew near the door of the tower to burn it with fire. Sounds like the early days of ISIS. Terrible. But a certain woman dropped an upper millstone on Abimelech's head and crushed his skull. Who is this woman? Don't know. God can use any person. God didn't use a general, didn't use some star soldier, decorated with purple heart and so on. a nameless woman, an ordinary person. God can use you. And God used her. And don't know, accidentally, oh sorry, I slipped my hand, boom, dropped down. You know. But whatever it is, it was divinely arranged. And so she dropped her upper, millstone, when they used to grind the flour, right? Is it flour? Yeah. So there's a lower millstone and there's an upper millstone. In the millstone quite heavy. Right? You don't carry it around as you walk along the tower, right? But somehow it dropped. Dropped the upper millstone on Abimelech's head and crushed his skull. Like it's really crushed. Then he called quickly to the young man, his armor bearer, and said, "Draw your sword and kill me, lest men say of me, a woman killed me." It's really an insult. Those days they really biased. Your MCP. Kill also must be killed by men, right? Cannot let people know that a woman killed me. But I'm surprised that his skull crushed, he still can, ask for, make one final request. So his young man thrust him through and he died, and then he died. Okay, so here in Judges chapter 9:51, they ran to the tower and they were saved. They ran to the tower and they were saved. And so when you read Psalm 61, a strong tower from an enemy, so the psalmist must have known of this incident in the past in Judges chapter 9, that God had saved his people who were hiding in the tower. So that's why he wrote a strong tower. For you have been. So that means it had happened before. So the psalmist knew. So God, you have been a shelter for me. A strong tower from the enemy. You have done it before. Okay? So I will abide in your tabernacle forever. I will trust in the shelter of your wings. So I am now far, far away. That's what the psalmist was saying. David was saying, I'm not far, far away, but I want to. I desire to come back to the tabernacle. I want to dwell in your presence because in there is shelter, there is protection, there is deliverance. So let's not be lone rangers. I don't need to go to church to be a Christian. True. I don't need to go to cell group to be a Christian. True. But you need to come together. The church is not the sanctuary. The church is not the hall chapel. The church is the gathering of the saints. So come together. Okay? For he is there. A strong tower for us from the enemy. So, verse 5. Now as we go from verse 4 to verse 7, you will find there are a few benefits as you abide in the presence of God, as you abide in his tabernacle. In verse 4, I will abide in your tabernacle. So to abide, that means to stay there, to be a welcome guest in God's presence. So next, the second part of verse 4 is, I will trust in the shelter of your wings. I will trust in the shelter of your wings. The Ark of the Covenant, there's a seraphim, the angels covering. Yeah. So he is saying, I will trust in the shelter of your wings. That is what? Protection. I shall be sheltered, I shall be protected. But to be able to go there, I thought it's only the high priest once a year who can go near the ark. But that was David's desire, to come closer to God. So the first blessing, as you abide in the tabernacle of God, is you will come closer to God. You will come closer to God. I will trust in the shelter of your wings. You see, because the tabernacle is so big, right? The tabernacle got outer court, got inner court, then got the most holy place. But only the high priest can go there. So to say that I will abide in your tabernacle forever, chances are I'm still outside. But David said, I will trust in the shelter of your wings. I want to come closer. Where is the wings? Where are the wings? In the most holy place, the Ark of the Covenant. So that is the first blessing. Verse 5. For you, O God, have heard my vows. So David must have promised God some things. And I'm sure when you are down, you are desperate, you make a lot of promises to God. But let me say, nobody forces you to make vows again. But when you make your vow, please keep them. Please pay them. So, David must have made some promise. For you, O God, have heard my vows. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name. Heritage, that means what? Inheritance. Okay? From father passed down to the son. From God passed down to his children. To the people who fear him. So what is this heritage? Let's look at Romans 8:32. Romans 8:32. Okay, let me read from verse 31. You know this so well. What then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? He, that means God, who did not spare his own son, Jesus, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him, God with Jesus, also freely give us all things? All things. Oh, you mean anything and everything? Okay lah, I need a new diamond, I need a new platinum, all things. But these are the things that are necessary for us. That God knows. What you ask of God, he will give it to you. You want wisdom, like Solomon asked for wisdom. You want good health, you want joy, you want peace. Ask of him. And this is but the most valuable thing is to know him. Right? Like Paul said, to know Christ and him crucified, to preach Christ and him crucified. To know him. That's all. That's the most important thing. So the second thing is, the first one is to come closer. As you dwell in the tabernacle, the second thing is to grow richer in knowledge. It doesn't mean when God say give you all things, together with Christ give you all things, that means give you open checkbook. No. Anything you want, you get. No. It is not about an open checkbook. But that you may grow in knowledge. Everything that God has in store will be yours. Revealed to you. Just ask him. Okay? You have given me the heritage of those who fear you, to grow richer in knowledge of him, of God. And that, I tell you, is the most valuable, because you read all the way to Revelation 21, Revelation 22, in that day there will be a restored fellowship. Now man is apart from God, but the day shall come where God will be dwelling with man, and you will be with him forever and ever. You'll be worshipping him forever and ever. I think it's good to get to know him now. Don't wait until then. You ask, who are you? He also asks you, who are you? Finish, you're in the wrong place. Okay? He will send you deportation card, send out, go, red card. Okay, you have given me the heritage of those who fear you, fear your name, that is to grow richer in knowledge. Verse 6, you will prolong the king's life. His years as many generations. So the third benefit is to live longer. To live longer. You will prolong the king's life, his years as many generations. But a mortal king, an earthly king, how many generations can he live? Okay, the most he become great-grandfather. I mean, I read in the papers, grandfather, great-grandfather, sometimes got great-great-grandfather, occasionally like you live until 90-something. But how many generations? To live that 3-4 generations to oversee, I think it's a blessing. 70. That is, I won't say the promise, but that is what is written in the Bible. Yeah. Not that it is a guarantee all of us will live 70 according to God's calendar. We don't know. But if you do have 70, 3 times 20 plus 10, 70 years old and beyond, you are blessed. Okay. So, if you live that long, I'm sure you see a couple of generations, so it's long life. But now we move on from the mortal king to the big K, capital K, king. And that is our Lord Jesus, King of Kings. And he will rule and reign forever and ever. You will prolong the king's life, his years as many generations. So anyway, for us, even if we don't have the 70, even if we don't have the 70, we just change address only, right? We go to number 1 heaven, and we will be with him forever and ever, to live longer. But if you don't, then you'll be somewhere burning, barbecue, whatever. But this promises here, these blessings here, as we abide in his tabernacle, we get to draw closer to God. We get to increase in our knowledge of him, and we get to live longer, physically and spiritually. Verse 7, he shall abide before God forever. He shall abide. Now this is referring to the small king. The small king. That means we have an application here. We will abide before God forever, for all eternity. Oh, prepare mercy and truth, which may preserve him. So the psalmist was asking for mercy. And that is really something that we desire. But you see what is being done in the Middle East, ISIS and so on, that is no mercy. So we just got to pray for the Christians that they are really getting persecuted. Okay. How things will turn out, I don't know. But I know in the book of Revelation, there are martyrs, even in the last days. But the good news is, God will not forget their sacrifice. God will demand of their blood from the hands of those who persecuted them. So the final whistle has not been blown. The battle is not over yet. God is still in charge. These people who have been persecuted, they have just been rushed into heaven. So God will take the revenge. Okay, so part 3, verse 8. Vow of Grace. So I will sing praise to your name forever. Again, it is singing and praising in advance, in confidence, in anticipation, knowing that though it has not happened, but God will deliver. So I will sing praise to your name forever, that I may daily perform my vows. That this is the right response. But some people is, no, I'm so angry with God. I'm so disappointed with God. God, if you do this, then I will do this. Okay? Shouldn't it be the other way around? You do this, then see what God will do. But sometimes we are so, entangled in a web of pain and suffering. So we say, no, I will stop going to church. You heard people say, I will stop going to church. I will not go celebrate. I will not tithe. But David said, I will sing. I'm still running away from Absalom, but I will sing praise to your name. Not just today, but forever. That I may pray, that I may daily perform my vows. Because when you sing praise, your emotion and the joy, all is within and it's building up. And with that, you are able to perform your daily vows. What is your daily vow? To spend some time with Him, to read the Bible, to commune with Him, whatever. You can do it. But when you're all turbulent in there, and angry and whatever, you stop. So, let's learn from the psalmist. Okay? His help for us is not just present, but for all eternity. Amen.